Hey all, welcome to Ambitious Envision. Today, we are gonna look at the issue that is going on in the Afghanistan region from the 1973 monarchy overthrow coup to the US invasion in 2001. Let's start with the overthrow of monarchy that took place in 1973. The leader, Mohammad Dawood Khan, a pro Soviet general, overthrows his cousin King Zahir Shah, who was a monarch in a military coup in 1973. Mohammad Dawood Khan and his People's Democratic Party take power and he names himself as the president of Afghanistan. And after that, 6 years later, 1979, is the year in which Mohammad Dawood Khan is killed in the pro Soviet coup and the presidency ends up in the hands of Nur Muhammad Tarki. He was the founding member of Afghan Communist Party and he appointed Babruk Karmal as his deputy. Tarki and Babrak declare independence from Soviet influence and they seek to take forward their country with Islamic indulgence. They also sought to develop Afghan nationalism and socio-economic justice. Taraki at the same time was at loggerheads with Hafizullah Amin, an influential communist leader. Meanwhile, an insurgency took place against Taraki's regime by the client state of the Soviet Union and it started forming in the countryside. The guerrillas who fought against the Taraki government were known as Mujahideen, some of whom made the Al Qaeda. In the Christmas Eve of 1979, Taraki was killed and Soviet Red Army crossed the Oxus River into Afghanistan to prop up the floundering government. Soviets cite an invite from the new Afghan communist leader Babrak Karmal, who was the deputy of Muhammad Dawood Khan. He later installed himself as the head of the government as justification for his invasion. This was the stage which was set for future decades of war and conflict. Across the border, the Mujahideen, funded by the United States, for a war against the communists so that they could establish their control over Afghanistan and take a majority edge in the Cold War that was happening between them and the USSR. So, Mujahideen started to fight against these Soviets. 8 million Afghans fled to Pakistan, starting the huge wave of refugees. Many Muslim countries were asked to send their Muslim volunteers for the war. One of them is Osama bin Laden. The tide of the battle turns in September 1986 when US provides Mujahideen with shoulder-held anti-aircraft Stinger missiles. CIA was also involved in this by a back-end operation called Operation Cyclone in the 1980s and it also funded weapons and money and other needful by the Pakistani dictator Muhammad Zia-ul Haq, who did the good work of calling all Muslim volunteers to fight for Afghan. On 14 April 1988, Washington, Moscow, Kabul, and Islamabad signed an agreement that outlines the withdrawal of Soviet troops from the Afghanistan region. This agreement is known as the Geneva Accord and covers four basic principles. First one, pace and time frame of 9 months Soviet withdrawal, halt of foreign interference in Afghan conflict, right of Afghans to determine own government, and safe return of some 5 million refugees from Pakistan and Iran. After that, in 1989, Moscow finally pulls troops out from Afghanistan. A decade after invading Afghanistan, they pull out their troops. On 15 February 1989, the last soldier of the Soviet Union leaves Afghanistan. The Mujahideen Party continued to battle the communist government headed by Najibullah. This was seen as a war declared against Hibatullah Mujahidi as head of their exiled government. In 1992, the Najibullah regime started to fall and Mujahideen started to take over. The Mujahideen who were in exile came back once Najibullah's regime started to fall. By now, the Soviet Union, which has been funding Najibullah regime in Afghanistan, started to divide into small countries and Russia. Now Mujahideen enters Kabul and takes over the place. The fleeing Najibullah is stopped at the airport and put under house arrest at UN compound. Power sharing among the Mujahideen leaders fall apart. They spend 4 years fighting one another. Much of Kabul is destroyed and nearly 50,000 people are killed. After this, the 1994 to 2001 period saw the Taliban take over. Taliban emerged in the South Kandahar region of Afghanistan in 1994, take over the province and set up a rule adhering to strict interpretation of Islam. On 26 September 1996, the Taliban captured Kabul after sweeping across the country with hardly a fight. Northern Alliance's forces retreat north toward the Panjshir Valley. The Taliban hangs Najibullah and his brother. Though initially welcomed for ending the fighting, the Taliban rules with a heavy hand under Mullah Muhammad Umar for the next 5 years, imposing strict Islamic edicts like denying women to go to school after the age of 8 and denying them to make up in any way. Like an example took place where a woman applied nail polish and her finger was cut in written. Punishments and executions are carried out in the public. In March 2001, the Taliban dynamited the world's largest standing Buddha statue in Bamiyan province to global shock, which was a significant attack to establish their ideology. In 2001, USA invades Afghanistan so that they could establish their supremacy, which was lost once by them again in Afghanistan. The greed still didn't go from the USA camp. They invaded Afghanistan saying that they would establish a democracy over there, but instead they started funding the Mujahideen party, which made the Al Qaeda group and the Taliban later. The Taliban was funded by the USA for a large time. After the attacks of 11 September 2001, Washington gives Mullah Omar an ultimatum: hand over bin Laden, dismantle militant training camps, or prepare to be attacked. Omar refuses them. 7 October 2001, US-led coalition launches an invasion of Afghanistan. In November, the Taliban flees Kabul for Kandahar as the US-led coalition marches into the Afghan capital with Northern Alliance. By December, the Bonn Agreement is signed in Germany, giving the majority of power to the Northern Alliance's key players and strengthening the warlords who had ruled between 1992 and 1996. Hamid Karzai, an ethnic Pashtun like most Taliban, is named Afghanistan's president. In December, Mullah Omar leaves Kandahar and the Taliban regime officially collapses. In May 2003, President George W. Bush famously declares mission accomplished as the Pentagon says major combat is over in Afghanistan. This was the place till USA landed in Afghanistan and took over the Taliban regime. But now the Taliban regime, again after a part-time exile, started to get together and started to attack all places and capture places in Afghanistan. The US, shocked by these things, started to retreat from Afghanistan and cleared its parties once and for all in 2021 after the Joe Biden speech. Joe Biden in his speech clearly mentioned that it would take another 3 to 4 months for Afghanistan to be fully captured by the Taliban, and the fully captured word can be taken as granted and it cannot be termed as fully captured as Afghanistan has a 300,000 people army which is equal to any other army in the world. But after 3 days of his speech, Afghanistan has been fully captured by the Taliban group, and now people are fleeing from Afghanistan fearing of Taliban rules which they have experienced once in the Taliban regime, and they don't want to be a part of it again. People are pushed to a certain extent where they hang in the tires of the US Army flights to escape from Afghanistan, and when the tire goes in, they fall down and die. And people don't even think that they are leaving their home country, which has given them food, shelter, and everything, but they just want to escape because of this inhumane activities taking place in their homeland. Don't love jihad, love people. Thank you.